On this video, you will be listening to Gustav Le Roux from God Ministries, ministering a message from one of our spirit schools. This will greatly propel you, take you deeper into the kingdom, to give you greater understanding and revelation. Enjoy. Bless you, and please subscribe. Thank you.
Just start praying in tongues with me. While you do, keep your soul focused so that the interpretation while you pray can bring you the encounter that the Father wants to lead you into as we start this meeting. Because every time you start praying in tongues, there's an image that portrays and reflects from your soul or from your spirit into your soul. Engage with that for a while and see where the Father takes us. I strongly urge you to begin to go deeper into what you see, into what the Father has revealed to you, into what you have encountered before. The Father wants, and it's His desire for us to begin to understand that which we see, begin to have knowledge of that which He's revealing to us, sons and daughters. I believe the shaking that has been taking place for the core to come out, for those who are desperately seeking to go deeper with the Father, for those who are serious in going deeper into revelation and knowledge and insight, to go and walk in the heavens and to get to know and understand who we are and the inheritance that we have in the fullness of the Christ that we occupy our entire presence and life in. And know that the Father is calling out a people that is more desperate for Him than any other. It is more than just what we perceive. And I've said this before. There was thousands that Yeshua preached to, and they did not perceive, only recognized the authority. Then He had 70, and He sowed into them very few. Then He had the 12 that He gave 3 solid years to. And He brought them great revelation and interpretation, and they saw great works. But then He had the 3. He had the 3 that wanted no more, that wanted to go deeper, that put their heads on His chest, that was always in His face, that went everywhere He went. They are the ones that led. They are the leaders that shifted the nation. And I believe that the generation we're talking about are going to be a people that's going to want to go that deep, that's going to want to be the ones hanging on His lips, pulling out of Yahweh all that which is the life that we are meant to walk in. It's a song that they sing, deep calls unto deep. And I need you to begin to understand the Father is calling you out from your shallow life as a Christian, and He's asking you to come in to the deep side, the deep things of what Yahweh has for us, sons and daughters. And begin to walk in revelation regarding all these things, to have an understanding of who we are, and to begin to bring the kingdom of heaven into the earth. There's so much legislation, there's so much stuff that needs to happen. There's dragons and giants that needs to be slain. And we don't have a clue about any of these things. But as we begin to go deeper, and we begin to allow the Father to protrude His presence and His glory into our lives, it brings us to the fullness of the light. And the light shows everything that's in the dark, and it becomes visible. Once it's seen, it's eliminated. So Father, as your sons, your daughters begins to step into the light. And I want to remind you that Yeshua is the light. And He didn't die for me, He died as me. Therefore I live as Him. Therefore I clothe myself in Him as the light. And when I walk in the earth, that's why He says, wherever you put your foot, that place belongs to you. Wherever I go, the light will show me the darkness and that which was hidden. Therefore it's no longer hidden. That's why as a mature son, you travel into the nations, you travel into the atmosphere, you travel into the galaxies, you travel through into the planets, into the stars, and you begin on your throne, you begin to see that which has been hidden, that which has controlled the system in the earth, that has occupied the mountains, the gates, the doors, those who has the keys in their hands, for us, the sons, begin to take it back from the enemy. He no longer has right to any of the stuff, because the sons that's dressed and clothed in the light is beginning to see. Father, we occupy ourselves with the business of our Father. As kings of the kingdom of Yahweh, we stand on our grounds, and Father, we begin to work at what is meant for us to work on, according to what's destined in our scroll, according to what we've agreed on, for that which has to take place in the earth and for that which is to take place in the heavens. For our purpose on the earth and our eternal destiny and our eternal purpose, there's more for us to do than what we can begin to fathom. Plain church is no longer a part of who we are. So Father, as we begin to walk in you and step deeper and deeper into what you have for us, as we begin to see and the supernatural is revealed to us, Father, I pray for the manifestation of your signs and wonders. I pray that we will also begin to understand that your desire for this generation is to be the signs and the wonders. We love you, my King. We love you, Yeshua, the Christ, the Messiah, the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings. We love you, Father. We love your Holy Spirit. Awesome, majestic, beautiful Holy Spirit. You're beautiful. The flaming fire skin. The gentle eyes. It looks upon your sons. You are so proud of us. You're excited when we come into your midst. You have taught us so much, and we are in you, and you are in us. It's like we are in Jesus, and He is in us, and we are in the Father, and He is in us. Therefore, we are baptized into the Yod, the Hey, the Vav, the Hey. We are in the four faces of Yahweh. We stand consumed in Him, and He stands consumed in us. We are in Him, He is in us. There's a dimensional shift that takes place in oneness that we can only fathom in the Spirit. We can only see it and relate to it as we go into the kingdom. So, Father, when we begin to understand the depth that you've called us to walk in with you, all these things will become clear to us. Thank you, my King. Amen. Amen. So the last couple of weeks I found myself to be very drunk. Most of the time I teach. And I'm not really particularly one that gets hectically on the manifestation. So I'll shake sometimes, and I'll feel my knees to be weak, and I would rather want to sit down. And I would find myself laughing on occasions just because of the joy of Yeshua and Yahweh over us. But lately I've found myself really just almost having to fight to act normal when I'm teaching. You know, my day is very busy because of the kiddies, and so there's a lot of stuff happening during my day, but the engagement's constant. But I never find myself to be drunk when I'm with my kids and with my wife and I'm in the house playing. But when I start engaging with the Father, when I sit down and I start doing something, there's a heaviness onto my physical body that takes place. And so a couple of downloads ago, don't look at me with that tone. When we soak, we get downloads. You're getting downloads from your spirit, downloads what it's been doing to your soul. That's why soaking is really the key. It's that focus, that manifestation into your soul of what your spirit's been doing. And I've found my spirit's been hanging out in a specific mountain that I've, I guess, stumbled upon. And I've been drinking wine in the heavens. And it's a very exciting time for me. It's the wine of the saints of old. And as you start drinking of the specific saint that's available, that you choose, it's like his life and a revelation of who he was is downloaded into your system. And it's excited me. It's almost changed and ripped the core of my being out. That's why I feel like, I guess that's why I feel like that. I can't really tell yet because revelation is still being downloaded. But this is an exciting time for us as saints. Amen. There's so much out there. And let me tell you, the saints of old, they want to be part of this generation. Because we are the last generation. We are the people in the relay race that will be classified as the fastest. Come on. The one that runs the last bit of the race. And the rest of them, they are excited for who we are and what we have been called to do. And so as the Yeshua generation, we need to begin to understand who we are. We need to begin to have the ability to engage with everything that's out there for us to engage with, so the knowledge that we need as a generation can come to us in its fullness. And the lack that we've had up to this point can fade away.
Thank you, Father.
Right?
Right. That's good.
So we've been busy with this for the last 6 weeks. We had all-day spirit school on Saturday for those of you who were here and could come. I think we had a great time. There was a lot of insights, a lot of things happening. It was a very intense time of a lot of stuff. I seem to average about between 10 and 15,000 words per hour. And so if you look at the 3 hours of teaching, we're looking at a lot of words.
All right.
Right? And what I love about what the Father has been kind of revealing to us, that in the Spirit, when that which is of Yahweh comes out of a son, it protrudes into the atmosphere and it's available for whoever engage. That's why Spirit School and that which everyone in the earth is teaching is in the earth, because it's the living word of Yahweh that comes out of a son.
Come on, that's good.
So it's there. That's why it could change a nation. That's why it could change a city. It could realign Picayune to where it's supposed to be. But in the same breath, it doesn't just align to me, it aligns to any son that speaks the oracles of Yahweh.
Thank you, Lord.
And I'm excited for what I see in this city. I'm excited for what I see in Apostle Paul and his wifey.
Yeah.
The power and the determination to do what the Father has called them to do, and to go beyond what their tradition and their religious beliefs have set and bound them to occupy in.
Come on.
They've broken away from it. You know how difficult it is to
Yes.
break away from what I believe you guys have been in all your life.
That's right.
It's not easy,
That's right.
because you're going to lose some people.
Yes.
And they're not going to like it, because we've been shaped to believe certain things.
Come on.
So it is exciting, and I honor you guys, and I bless you.
Wow. That's awesome.
You know, over the last couple of weeks, we've prophetically been declaring what this generation is supposed to be.
Right.
Okay, so tonight we're carrying on, and I want to start with a scripture, and I'm not with a scripture, I want to start with where we ended, and we were kind of talking about the Joshua generation will be giant killers, forerunners for the next generation. You guys remember that?
All right.
Now, the idea is that everybody doesn't go and find or look for a dragon
That's right.
or a giant.
Don't look for it.
Okay, that is a very, very stupid idea. Not once in any of my engagements in the spirit realm did I go out to look for a giant. As a matter of fact, every one of my encounters, every time I go into the spirit, not once have I purposefully gone into the earth to walk to and fro. It's on assignment as I walk deep and intimately with the seven spirits, as they teach me, as they train and equip me. Every other time I have been in the spirit realm was to worship and glorify and magnify and to go as the Father leads me. When I see a dragon or when something happens, it's done according to, I believe, the Spirit taking me to see.
Come on, come on.
It's not something I just go do out of my own free will. Now I believe that as the training continues, the Father will direct us to go and eliminate all of that, because the road has been paved. You guys understand that?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not the first to teach this. There has been and are great, phenomenal, awesome, powerful sons and daughters of the Most High that have been walking in these revelations, which I have only barely touched on for the last 6 years. They have walked in it for 40 years.
Come on. Good.
You know, we have Ian Clayton says he's been doing this for 38, 40 years. Justin Abraham, 15, 16 years. Grant Mahoney, he has literally been able to see since he was 3 years old, and it's never been taken from him. So he's been operating in this type of dimension all of his life.
All right.
And of course, Ian, as I believe in my heart to be one of the leaders in the church, in the ecclesia, might not be as well known as some of the other leaders that we can think in the natural. But he has been paving the road for saints, for sons and daughters like me and you that want to go deeper for years. Which means what he has experienced as the forerunner has taken him years to understand and perceive. But now that there's someone that understands and perceives it, everyone else that runs in behind him can just almost double the time of revelation that he has had. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've been walking in this for 6 years, and it feels to me that there was never a day in my life that I didn't know this. But in the same breath, I know that as the years have gone by, the 6 years, I still haven't touched base on what it should be and the revelation that I should have regarding what the Father is revealing to this time, for this generation, this time and season.
Amen.
So yes, it's exciting, but in the same breath, we have to begin to understand what we have to do. I can no longer play church.
All right.
Okay, there's as far as I understand in the revelation, that which is out there is this. There is 9 races of giants which arose from the activity of the fallen angels who did not keep their proper place, as we read in Jude. The Nephilim, now I need you to understand, and I might not be 100% correct on this. This is my perception, understand of it. The Nephilim is a demonic line, but in the same breath, all Nephilim cannot be demonic.
All right.
Okay, and we need to just understand that there is the fallen ones, and there's the justified righteous ones. Now, I don't want to go into detail regarding that, but I know that that's out there because I've seen it in the spirit. Okay. The Nephilim did not have the human spirit, so when they died, they went into the heavenly realms where they occupied mountains and thrones. This is the powers and principalities and the rulers of the darkness of this age that we cannot see. What we've been fighting against over the last 400 years is demons. Demons are those lust, perversion, hate, murder that is earthbound. That's the ones we can see. Yeah. Because that's the realm that we occupy in. But these powers and principalities, they are hidden. Right. So only the mature sons that is on their thrones and in their mountains can occupy and see these demonic entities and slay them, literally nullify and destroy them. Now I also want to say in the same breath, these giants and these dragons that is there in the spirit realm, we have to understand that they have taken from us, they have kept revelation, insight, knowledge. They have taken our scrolls and kept it from us. And so once you chop off a dragon's head and his tail and you cut open his belly, you will find all kinds of stuff coming out of it. Diamonds, rubies, I've seen currency and books and scrolls, revelational insight. I've seen thunder, lightning, all these things coming out of the belly of giants and out of dragons. And it's just the idea, I believe, as far as what I've seen, is that the Father wants us to take that. The one who sees it has to slay it.
All right.
And so we go and you take all those diamonds and rubies, all the treasures that comes out of the dragon, and you store it in your mountain to trade for the nations. But you need to understand that as the sons of today, those who are mature and have grown, begin to operate as what we were destined to operate in, we will, in the same breath, unlock our mountains and regain authority over what's ours. We will again have the keys to the gates and the doors that we are to occupy, which means whatever and wherever we go, that we will receive the fullness of the revelation and the power that the Father is releasing and pouring into a generation.
Amen. That's good.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes, Lord. Awesome.
Dragons are another result of Satan's attempt to manipulate DNA. Now, I don't want to go too much into detail regarding this, but I need you to understand that DNA is extremely important, because only DNA can occupy the realms of the heaven.
All right.
Why?
Spiritual.
Because it was given to the sons of God.
Oh, yeah.
We have dominion and authority. We have never taken the dominion and authority. So what Satan did is he went into Cain.
Dang.
In South Africa, we have got an alcohol like vodka called Cain. So there's a joke going around that Cain started killing already in the Bible's time. You know, Cain killed Abel. Cain in South Africa's alcohol. South African humor is just not the same as American. But it's supposed to be funny. So when I make a joke and you don't catch it, just laugh.
Okay.
Okay? See, Satan had to occupy DNA to have rights in the earth.
All right.
That's right.
And so now that he's got rights in the earth, because there's a generational bloodline that goes with Cain into the earth. So he's got the right to occupy until a legalized son steps into the gap and takes back what's his.
All right.
That's never been done. As a matter of fact, Satan had the ability to come against the knowledge because of having the keys to the gates and the doors and the mountains, and having his dragons and giants occupying those spaces, that we no longer want to go there in any way, fashion, or form. So in the spirit, we have come against any form of spirit travel, because it belongs to the New Ages, and it belongs to Satanists, and it belongs to every other religion that's spiritual enough to obtain it, but the Christians cannot have anything to do with it. It is an abomination and it's not of God. So we've been conditioned to believe it. So every other religion has been out there drawing power. That's why there could be witches in Africa. And there's actually, like I said this to you before, there's a law in Africa, and I believe in Switzerland as well, that a witch is not allowed to fly higher than 150 meters. Now, we can't even begin to fathom that. But it's because they have had the capacity and the revelational knowledge as they were trading with their DNA. That's why you will hear, it might just be stories that we don't always understand or know this, but we will have someone that all of a sudden becomes famous, and we'll hear via the pipeline that they gave their souls over to Satan. Or that they signed a contract in the spirit to give their spirit being over to Satan. You guys ever heard of that stuff?
Yes, we have.
Why? Because they now give Satan the right to trade in his DNA. Give Satan the right to pour in all that which he knows and has perverted, and give it to the sons of Satan.
Wow.
Because let's remind ourselves, if there's sons of God, then there's sons of Satan. Because he can only take what he knows and then pervert it. He doesn't recreate or reform anything out of nothing, like what we can do. You guys okay?
Yes, yes, yes.
Only DNA can inherit. So Satan needs DNA. He had to do everything in his power So now that he has sons in the earth that has DNA of his in the earth, he has the ability to do all kinds of things. That's why the earth is unaligned to what it's supposed to be. But as this generation begins to see more, because John makes it very clear, if you're born again, you can see.
All right.
Now we've read that scripture and we said to ourselves, well, so what you're saying is if I'm born again, I can see the kingdom of God. So if I'm born again, I can go to heaven. No. If you're born again, you can see into the kingdom of heaven.
Into the kingdom of heaven.
And we need to begin to understand the difference. I don't go to heaven because I'm born again. I go to heaven because I believe. That's what the Bible tells us. For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, forever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Has nothing to do with being born again. When I am born again, I am born from above, and my spirit being is reactivated, and all of a sudden I can see, and that sight is in the kingdom of heaven to see what my Father's doing, like Yeshua. So everything I am supposed to be doing is what I see my Father do.
Yes.
So that means I bring the kingdom of heaven into the earth.
To the earth. Woo.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. That's good.
Dragons occupy our inheritance. Everything and every time I've gone into a different state or city in the spirit, and the Father showed me what needed to happen, and it's happened, and I found the treasures, I realized that was meant for the saints and the sons of Yahweh that worked in that time or that era. That did everything they could to get everything that's out there, to bring salvation, to bring revelation and knowledge into the church. But they can only give what they know. And they only knew what they heard from the previous generation. There was nothing directly from the heart of God, because we had to believe that you have to die to go to heaven.
All right.
You have to die to be perfect.
Yeah.
You can't see God. That's an abomination to whoever you are.
Come on. Come on.
Because we never went beyond the first dimension of the word.
Yes.
We never moved past the milk.
Yes.
The Joshua generation will bring revelation that whenever the next generation places their feet, they will possess. The Joshua generation will bring revelation that wherever the next generation places their feet, they will possess. And I need you to understand, the next generation cannot have that unless we have gone ahead of them and nullified the works of the enemy.
Thank you, Lord.
The only reason there's still sin in the earth is because the sons of Yahweh has not brought light into the kingdom of darkness.
All right.
Because I say this again, there is no kingdom other than the kingdom of earth, the one we so what called Satan's kingdom, the kingdom of darkness, does not exist.
Right.
It's a kingdom in darkness, and when the sons of light go into that kingdom, the darkness is nullified.
Amen.
And that is a progressive dimension of works that we have to shift into through walking with the seven spirits, beginning to understand what the Father is trying to pour into this generation as a people that walks in the heavens.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Isaiah talks about cloud riders. That possession includes both the world and the heavens. Both are their inheritance and destiny. See, I never knew that what I'm doing today was possible.
Right.
And I said to you before, I've done 13 years of biblical theology. I did 5 Bible schools, and none of them taught me any of this. Matter of fact, I've been in the church since I was 19 years old. I got born again when I was 19, and immediately I started, via the leading of the Holy Spirit, went into a phenomenal, powerful church where the pastor is absolutely awesome. Man of God, no compromise, on fire, always in the Word, revelation poured out of him. He's great, got great sons in the earth, and he's still going, and I never heard any of these things.
All right.
Now I understand that in his life, he's occupied in all of these things, but it's not something you could teach the church, because it's a mega church and you have to kind of stick to what the babies understand and perceive. Then he's got his leadership team and his pastors right underneath him, which he will teach these type of things to.
All right.
Of course, we can't, in mega churches today, we can't just preach what we want.
Right.
I can't preach this stuff in a mega church, because the babies will choke on the meat.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they will choke on the mystery
Yeah.
because it'll just be too much.
Too much.
And I believe that's why Yeshua would go out and speak to the 5,000 or the 20,000 and come back to the 12. And even by the 12, break it up into 3 and go even deeper.
Amen. Thank you.
But he will go deeper only to those who want him to go deeper.
Yeah.
All right.
He didn't ask the 3 to be the 3.
Uh-huh.
No.
They wouldn't let him go. They wouldn't leave him. And of course, then you still have the 2 that fell away for a time. But you have the 1 that never left his side.
Come on now.
John.
John. Yeah. It's me. Come on, John.
No, that's me.
That's me.
No, that's me.
No. I've got the mic. Did you guys get what I'm saying? Right.
Yes, yes, yes.
So Moses swore on that day, saying, surely the land on which your foot has trodden will be an inheritance to you and your children forever, because you have followed the Lord my God fully. Now there's a dimension that we have to begin to understand the Father wants to walk in. Following him fully is something the church has never experienced. As a matter of fact, loving him with all our minds, body, soul, and strength has something I've never seen in the church to its full capacity. Now that I'm looking at what the Father is busy doing and the ability that we now have to go in, which of course has always been there, looking at Enoch, looking at Elijah, looking at David, tapping into timelines that wasn't really available yet, but because Yeshua was slain before the foundations of the earth, everything has always been available, but it was only available for those who hunger and thirst after intimacy.
All right.
And so as this generation begins to realize that I can't go on my knees with my hands together and ask God to forgive me of my sins and ask him to supply my needs and call that relationship and call that intimacy.
Come on.
No, we call that religion. And religion will always kill Jesus.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to understand that's no longer what he requires of us.
Thank you.
He has opened up the veil through his blood and has torn it for us to go in and live in that dimension, live in that kingdom, and reflect and bring that into the earth. For the promise that Abraham, or for the promise to Abraham or to his descendants, that he would be heir of the world. I always get that word, heir. I have no hair, but I'm going to be the heir. I get it. And the Father's desire for us is to begin to understand that this generation is go heir with him. Go heir. Say it again.
Amen.
Go heir with him.
Go air.
And of course, even in saying that, we don't really perceive it. Because I've expressed this before, it's dimensional waves of fire and power and glory and operating from out of him into the earth. I found myself the other day on my throne, and I shared with you before, it is a massive ball of fire. Now, I don't know if everyone else has the same type of throne. I've never per se focused or looked at this, but I was taken out into a massive space of nothing. There was no stars. I know that it was in the universe, or one of the universes, and there was nothing there. And I remember Ian Clayton said that he created a universe, but I wasn't there to do that. I was just there with my Father to see what he does. And he gave me something in my hand, and he said, throw it out. That was in him, and as I threw it out, it became stars. Thousands and thousands of stars in a new galaxy that he was busy creating. And it was exciting.
Yeah.
And I could never fathom that. I would never even speak that out of my mouth in front of people. I remember sharing something with somebody in my Bible school, the very first Bible school, and it's like, that's not in the Bible, that's not biblical. That's unlawful, you shouldn't speak of that. And at that point, I was just an ignorant little boy in Christ, and I said, okay, well, I'm sorry, and I got cut off right there. Exciting. Now, he wasn't trying to cut me off, he only showed and revealed what he knew.
What he knew.
Yeah.
What he knew.
Right, but how many of you also understand that what is revealed in the Bible, even that which I'm talking to you today, I might not be quoting scriptures, but everything I say, if you go to the mysterion or even to the meat of the word, that's what it is. That's where it comes from. And I really truly believe that everything I preach up to this point, I have taken out of the years of reading the Bible over and over again, meditating on scriptures, going into the Word. I no longer have to quote the Word because I've gone into the Word, and what comes out of me is Word. It doesn't have to be scripture according to the way you know it. And that's the generation that's going to possess the land.
Yes, Lord. Thank you.
Wherever we put our foot, because where I walk is where Yeshua's walking. I only walk there because He's there and I'm one with Him. He's only walking there because I'm walking there and I'm one with Him.
Amen.
Co-heir. It's a dimension we need to begin to understand. And Jesus said that all authority had been given to Him, both in the heavens and in the earth. Matthew 28. All authority has been given to Him in the heavens and in the earth. That means there's not a kingdom, a dimension, a realm that does not have submission to a son and a daughter of the Most High.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Now I need to remind you, everything I say takes place in Christ. It doesn't take place outside of Christ. Outside of Christ, I'm a defeated foe.
Yeah.
I'm a nothing. I'm a lauzer.
Lose it.
You got that? Okay, so it's in Christ that all this takes place. So I don't want to say it all the time. I just want you to know that nothing that comes out of my mouth excludes me being in Christ. And when I talk about the power and the fire and ruling in it and slaying dragons, nothing happens outside of Christ.
Yes, Lord.
This is the foundation and the cornerstone is that which we build on.
Yes.
If you don't have the foundation and the cornerstone, you can't build nothing.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
The whole of creation groans as it waits for the sons of God to be revealed. When you take your place as a son in the heavenly realms, you are beginning to step up into your inheritance, which is the whole of creation. Now I know that we don't understand this, but the whole of creation includes everything before creation started.
All right.
Because when we hear creation, we think of in the beginning God. But we think that in the beginning God is a chronological time era that he's talking about, but it's not what it is. In the beginning was God, was in the beginning, everything was in God. But there's no beginning because He is the beginning. So it's in the beginning that stops there. He is the beginning.
Yes, Lord.
Because we can't fathom the fact that God has no beginning.
All right.
Now, how is that possible? Why? Because we had a beginning. So even beginning to think that there's no beginning in Him, that He was just always there, that He wasn't created, He was just always there because He's God, we can't fathom that. But there'll be a day where revelation will come and we will have all knowledge.
Thank you, Lord.
That's why He said to Moses, no man will ever see me face to face. That face to face, that revelation, that mystery that He shared with Moses right there is that no man will ever know me before time was time. But there will be a day. Exciting, isn't it?
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord.
You guys okay? I'm going off my notes all the time. It's all your fault. Yeah. And we will find, and you will find that you can go anywhere in creation. That you will go to the galaxy. And actually, we are supposed to create with Him too. That we can never begin to think of this type of stuff. But I look at my life today and how exciting it is to be a Christian. I mean, I minister 4 days a week. That's every single week. And then, of course, I will invite it to a church every now and then. I try not to go per se, but I have opened my mind to whoever wants to invite me to minister there, I will go. But my focus is the schools because that's what's written on my scroll. And let me tell you something, it's the strangest thing because I basically start at 7 and then I end at 9. That's 2 hours, that's 8 hours a week. And so the rest of my week is to engage with Father.
Yeah.
The rest of my week is to get to know Him better, to go deeper, to educate my kids, to father my children, to love my wife, to be part of my life in Christ with the family that was given to me, to bring them to where they're supposed to be. And of course it's not easy. There's so much stuff that comes in. But my primary focus is going deeper and deeper into Yeshua. Being aligned with what He's really doing in my life. Realizing who I am and then going out and doing it.
Yes, Lord.
And I have to also say that if I have to share the things that I've been doing, it'll just sound like I'm crazy and that I'm making up stories. That's what it sounds like to me. And I know that everyone in this room feels the same about the things you're experiencing, because that's just the lies of the enemy.
Yes, Lord.
And of course, if I have to share it with the church the way I'm sharing it with you now, and I am, because it's going to be on YouTube, they're thinking, well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. You're just making the stuff up in your imagination, because your imagination is evil, you dirty, rotten scoundrel.
Come on.
Then we forget that we have the mind of Christ.
Yes.
We forget that we have been reconciled. We've been reconditioned, that He's been completely washed and covered in the blood of Yeshua, which means I can no longer do what I used to do. The old man's dead.
Yeah.
And that's not my dad.
Amen.
It's my old way of living, the old being, the old creation. The new has come. The new is a spirit being.
Amen. DNA. Come on.
The Joshua generation, the Yeshua generation will encourage a passion to love God and to walk in His ways and to serve Him with all our hearts and souls. Then it goes on in Joshua, in Joshua it says, only be very careful to observe the commandments and the law which Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, to love the Lord your God and to walk in His ways and to keep His commandments and to hold fast to Him and to serve Him with all your heart and with all your soul.
Yes, Lord.
That's the generation that will go beyond what any other generation up to this point has experienced.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
Because we were taught that you can only hear His voice.
Only hear His voice.
You can't see Him. You can't touch Him or feel Him. And I saw that on Facebook again today. Someone said that on a post. And they, but here's the wind that blows. It sounds really nice and poetic. But in the same breath, it's so pathetic that we can believe something like that. That we can believe that God is so involved in our lives and He wants to be part of everything, and that we can ask Him everything and He will come and do it, and He's there and He's here. But when we begin to talk about me seeing Him, touching Him, feeling Him, and you're crazy and you're an abomination to the Word, and you get excommunicated from the church.
Help us, Lord.
Because, well, I have to die to see God. Okay, well, I remind myself that I gave my life to Jesus. And so if I give my life to somebody, I'm dead.
Yeah.
So I have already died. It's no longer I who live, but Christ that lives in me. I even live this life by His faith.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, I can see Him, because He said I don't do anything unless I see my Father do it. So He saw the Father.
Yes.
So I can see Him. And now that I can see Him and I can go where He is and walk with Him and touch Him and talk to Him, He's so real, but I have given my entire life to Him. That there is no doubt within me whatsoever, any way, fashion, or form, that God, Yahweh, is the only and there is no other God. And I'm not even joking when I said that.
That's it.
There is no other God.
Yes, Lord.
Because He did not create any other gods.
Amen.
So there might be demons out there that think they are gods, but they're not.
You're not.
There might be people out there that think they have another religion and they are worshipping a God, but that is not.
Amen.
And Paul makes that statement in 2 Corinthians. You guys okay?
Yes.
God hates mixture and lukewarmness.
Oh, yes, Lord.
And so will we. There will be no compromise for this generation. But we will not be religious. Now there's so many different perceptions regarding that statement, because I've seen and I've understood that a religious man can stand in front of me and say, well, I'm not religious.
Come on now.
And then I look at him and I'm thinking, oh, that's the most religious thing I've ever heard in my life. I just look at you and I see religion all over you. Every time you quote the scripture, I think you're religious. Every time you say something that is related to anything you do in Christ, I think and I feel, because I can feel the religious spirit on and over you, operating through you.
Yes.
And the church is full of it. It's full of the Pentecostal church is full of religious demons.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's the truth.
That is the truth.
But there's a generation that's going to move out of it. And of course, let me be honest with you, there's already people that's moving in what I'm busy preaching today.
Yes.
And most of us in this room have been touching the hem of it. I've been walking in it for 6 years. I know Quentin has been walking in it. I know that Margie's been walking in it. I know that Teresa and Johnny have been walking in it. That's what they do and who they are. It's what they're known for.
Thank you.
And so we're growing in it, and it's phenomenal. But we need to have an understanding that Yeshua had disciples and he discipled.
Thank you.
We can't just have disciples, sons and daughters, and not father them and propel them into this.
Thank you. Yes.
And I hear it so often, well, I can't even speak to someone about this stuff because I'll get thrown out of the church. Maybe you should leave.
Yeah.
We don't do that here.
And take someone with you. Take a son and a daughter with you to train and equip.
All right.
You know, I remember being in the gym, and it was many years ago. I was a personal trainer, and I didn't have any of this revelation, but I was on fire for the Messiah. And I remember sharing something very simple, very basic with a lady, one of my clients, and she was in awe. It was a very basic Christian foundational revelation, and she was like, what? Wow, where did you get that from? I've never heard anything like it in my life. And I'm thinking, what? Where do you come from? Where have you been that you've never heard this? This is the most basic revelation of our faith that you could possibly say or give to somebody.
All right.
And my point is that today what you have heard for the last year, let me tell you something. What you have inside of you can change anybody's life.
Yeah.
You just have to open your mouth.
Yes, Lord.
You don't have to think you're not ready or think you're not qualified or wait for your pastor to release you, which is ridiculous. You don't have to wait for anybody to release you because Yahweh is your leader, He's your head, He's your covering, and He says you're ready.
Yes.
Lord.
Thank you.
Go and do what's written on your scroll.
Yes.
And it's always to Father.
Whew, thank you, Lord.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
The Joshua generation will warn the next generation about the dangers of compromise and going backwards. And I want to say this, and I probably said it before, but if you wake up tomorrow morning and you're the same as what you were tonight, you're backsliding.
That's right.
Okay, it's just a logic fact. I cannot wake up any day in my life and be the same as yesterday. It's a continuous growth that has to take place. Revelation is progressive. My life in Christ is progressive. If I step backwards, I'm stagnating. That's the smell you sometimes smell in church.
All right.
Me and my wife went to a church once, and I don't actually like talking about this stuff because I really want to honor God's people. And you know, there's so much happening in the church, and although we are so far behind and we are so much against this stuff, they only do what they know. That's all they know. That's why they do it. Right? So being judging over them is not really going to propel them. It's more having our spirit enlarged and stretched over them so we can have them in our hearts so they can begin to change and be restructured and reformed. But as we step into the church and they're beginning doing their little thing in the front, and it was a Pentecostal church, not a religious or weird, you know, it was pretty much hand clapping, the music in the back, it was all sharakabanda and all that. It was really good. But what was being said and done in front, me and my wife both looked at each other and we were like, help me, Jesus. And immediately now there was no children in the vicinity because the children were in the back.
Yeah.
And so we started smelling a stinky diaper.
Interesting.
We both looked and said, they're all babies.
Babies.
The leaders of the church, the preacher that's there. They're all babies wearing diapers.
Wow.
Stinky.
That freaked me out.
Yeah. That is amazing.
Now you might think, oh, who do you think you are? Well, I'll tell you who I think I am. I'm a mature son that's walked with Yahweh. Deep and intimately every day of my life for the last 6 years. Well, that means I'm 6 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm not that mature. Not as mature as what I think I am. And first of all, I have an apostolic leadership anointing on me. Now that immediately should tell you that I have pride issues. And that I love myself excessively and I think I'm the best preacher. That's why I will judge any other preacher and think, and I would never have said it like that. He should listen to some of my videos. And I'm dealing with it, but that's what happens, because you look at yourself through his eyes. And it's always in advance. It's beyond what you can fathom. It's not what you see, because he looks at Paul, at Peter, and Peter's a mess.
Yeah.
And he looks at him and says, well, I'm going to build my church. He didn't look at him and say, oh my goodness, you're going to fail trying to walk on water. I'm going to have to rebuke you and say, get behind me, Satan. You're going to be a pain in my butt because you're going to be doing all kinds of stupid things. You're going to chop that guy's ear off, and I'm going to have to fix it. He didn't say, oh, you're going to deny me 3 times. So, you're going to be okay one day, but for now, you're just going to be Peter. No, he looked at him and said exactly what he saw. And when you start seeing what he sees, you'll get full of yourself. There has to be a balance, of course, and I'm finding a balance. But I know who I am, and I like it.
Yes, Lord.
And this generation is going to know who they are.
Yes, Lord.
You guys okay?
Yes.
See, we cannot compromise. We cannot go back, and we cannot backslide. Do I have issues? Yes, I do. But I'm working on it every day. That's why I go into the heavens.
Yes.
I don't go into the heavens because I'm there. I did it. I'm the one. No, I'm a big fat mess most of the time. That's what Paul said. And Paul was the apostle of apostles.
Yes.
He said, I'm a big fat mess, man. I'm the worst of the worst.
Yes.
But that's what Yeshua says. He says, well, the door's on the floor. You want to be first, be last.
Yes.
The more you know, the more you're responsible for.
All right.
Yes, Lord. Thank you.
That's why we don't just want everyone's mantles. I do not want Paul's mantle, thank you.
All right, come on.
I like my face. It's not the most handsome, but to me it is. And to my wife, he was grotesque. He didn't start off like that. He was a handsome boykie. Till he got stoned. And beaten up, flogged many times. How do you get shipwrecked 3 times?
All right.
You know how crazy that is? That's like me phoning my mom and saying, Mom, I was in a car in an airplane crash, and I'm the only survivor. And she's like, what? Wow, are you okay, my son? Yes, I'm fine, Mom. And then 2 weeks later, I phoned the exact same phone call again. Mom, I was in an airplane crash again, and I'm the only survivor. Like, what? I don't want his mantle. I would like to have a snake bite me and chuck it into the fire and come nothing of it, but I would prefer not to be bitten by a snake. They are disgusting.
Yes, Lord.
And I don't want to get flogged.
Right.
And I still have this attitude, if you touch me, I'm going to knock you out, bro.
All right.
He's dealing with me. Thank you, Jesus.
Yes, Lord.
I'm confessing all kinds of stuff to you guys tonight. Well, that's just how I roll. If you can't see it, you need to look. Because we are one. You guys understand that?
Yes.
The Joshua generation will charge the next generation to never stop warring. The fight goes on until the kingdom of God fills the earth. And it's continuous legislation. It doesn't stop because we're getting weary or we're dying off. I also want to say that this generation, if we walk to its fullness, will not die off, but we can. But we will continually war and continually propel forward. Now it came about after the death of Joshua that the sons of Israel inquired of the Lord, saying, who shall go up first for us against the Canaanites to fight against them? See, when Joshua died, they didn't stop and say, well, our leader's gone, no, we can't go on.
Right.
No, when he died, they said, okay, let's go fight.
Yeah.
And I believe that's what we need to equip the next generation with.
That's right.
Yes, Lord.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
The Joshua generation will set a clear choice before the next generation. They can choose their past, or they can choose to walk in the future destiny. That which we are having and experiencing today, the revelation is coming today, we haven't even touched in its fullness yet. We haven't experienced the things we're talking about per se, although we might have touched on some of it. We've gone into some parts of it, but I've never been translated. I've never had my physical body disappear. My entire body has not been into the kingdom of heaven yet. I'm not glorified yet. In my pride, I sometimes think I'm glorified, but then very quickly as I walk into the wall, I realize I'm not. So there's some stuff that still needs to change in me. The DNA as I eat and drink of Him has not really taken full effect. But the next generation, as we train and equip, they will walk in this. And we have to believe it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Joshua was 110 years old when he died, and he have fulfilled his entire destiny. I believe as the Yeshua generation, which is different than the Joshua generation, it's a new creation. We do not have to die twice.
Thank you, Lord.
Because I've died in Him already. Now I will throw it out there, and it's not because I have a lack of believing the facts that's coming out of my mouth, but some in this room will die.
Yes.
Because we cannot wrap this around our skulls. Because we've been taught and we've been hammered to believe that every man must die. Well, that's fine. I'm no longer a man. I'm a spirit being. But I have to believe it. It's easy to say these things, but the idea behind all these revelations is for me to step into it and to believe it, to go into the heavens and to frame myself a new world, to create a new world around me. Everywhere I go, everything I touch, everything I see, it's the kingdom of heaven.
Thank you.
And that's the generation, that this Joshua generation is leading into this because this is the promised land. And we've been living in it for a long time. But revelation of what we have is only coming to its fruition today. Let's stand. Father, as we stand up into a subconscious belief that we will do what has been said, we will take what has been preached over the last 7 weeks, what has been taught, and we will run with it deep, Father. We will take every revelation, we will take every word said, and we will hang on it, we will eat of it, we will drink of it, we will be reminded the word is Yeshua, and the fullness of Yeshua is Yahweh, stepping into the Yod, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, stepping into all of God and all His glory and fire, and bringing that revelation, that intensity of your presence into the earth, and legislating the kingdom of heaven into every dimensional area that we walk in and go into. Father, I pray that as we begin to enter into deep worship with you every day of our lives, that these revelations, these encounters, Father, these manifestations, these signs, these wonders will begin to take place in our lives. Father, I pray that the heavenly doors will open for everyone in this room. Father, heavenly encounters, Father, translations, relocations, Father, just absolute experiences all over the globe, Father, that will begin to realign different nations, different planets, different sections of the world, Father, sons and daughters uniting in the Spirit, doing what needs to be done, Father, going into the heavens, having meetings, discussing strategy of war, Father, doing all kinds of phenomenal things that realigns the earth into the perfect image of Yeshua.
Yes.
Father, I'm excited and we are part of it. Thank you. Thank you, Father. We love you. In the name of Yeshua. Amen.